Ready to have some fun? Let's do it.
Hello everyone! For this special episode I recorded a slightly different intro because, as you may have noticed already, this episode is totally in English instead of Dutch. So, welcome English listeners and Dutch listeners who understand English to the Makers podcast, or in English, the creators. My name is Dide Vonk and I'm a singer and an actress. When I started to create my own music and theater show, I noticed there were a lot of things I didn't learn during my education in arts. Questions like, how do I sell my work? Where can I play my shows? And how do I stay productive and motivated in this creative business? That's why I started this podcast, in which I invite a different creative guest every week and talk about their experiences so far. This week, my guests are Andrew Moskos and Saskia Maas. Together with Pep Rosenfeld, they started ComedyClub Boom Chicago 27 years ago. Even though a lot of people did not believe in their idea and they have never received any government funding, they kept going and grew into the innovative and influential comedy institution it is today. They have made more than 1 million people laugh at their stages, and many famous American comedians started their careers here. Think about Seth Meyers, Peele, Ruffin, and many more. We'll talk about a lot of things, including how they kept believing in their own idea, about continuously reinventing yourself, about comedy, their vision, and about their new show sitcom that will have its premiere this September 22nd. Enjoy the show. Here are Saskia Maas and Andrew Moskos.
My name is Saskia. I've been CEO for 27 years of Boom Chicago. Boom Chicago being, the comedy ensemble that introduced Improv theater to the Dutch main audience 27 years ago. Yeah.
And I'm Andrew Moskos, and I am one of the founders of Boom Chicago, and fell in love with Amsterdam all those years ago, and decided to move here to start Boom Chicago.
Nice. Yeah, it's quite a romantic story in a way. You came here on holiday with a friend, you got stoned, and you thought it would be a great idea to start a comedy club.
Yes, it was. I had a regular job in Chicago. I wore a suit. I commuted downtown. I was a specialist in early childhood literacy. I worked for a corporate nonprofit that wanted to make life better in Chicago. But then drugs changed my life, and I got a real job, a comedy job, a creative job, and where we could combine our sort of creative desires and make a living at it at the same time.
So you already had a job in Chicago. You were also doing improv theater there.
In Chicago, it was a hobby. So I was taking classes at an famous improv theater, IO, in Chicago, and I had risen to the middle of the scene where I would have stayed. And then, luckily, by starting my own theater, I got to cast myself. And now I'm one of the premier improvisers in the world. So, but step one, get your own place.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. That's why I started making my own place as well, because exactly. Then you can play what you want. Yeah, no, that's a great start. And you came to Amsterdam, fell in love with the city, and you got the idea for a comedy club, but Amsterdam, the city, thought that was not a good idea.
Yes, so like I said, we thought about the idea. The next day, it still made good sense. We then wrote the then Fay Amsterdam and said, "Here's our idea. We want to start a show where it's creative enough, it's cultural enough to be reviewed in the arts pages, but it is fun enough that you want to go with your friends, and it's not like The Dentist where it's good for you, but you don't actually like it." And we wanted to serve drinks during the show, seat people at tables, and we said, "Here's our idea. It doesn't exist in Amsterdam. What do you think?" And they wrote us back, which was nice, very efficient, the government, and they said, "Your idea will not work. The Dutch don't want to see a show in English. The tourists don't want to see a show at all. You need subsidy to do theater in the Netherlands. You will not get any subsidy, so think twice about your plans." So we took the fax, because it was 1993, and we used faxes back then, and we framed it, and we put it up on the wall.
It's right behind
you. That's and then we came anyway, and we said, "No, that's too pessimistic. That's a little, we think it's going to work." Mm-hmm. And then for the longest times, we tried to invite her to come see the show, who gave us the negative advice. And finally she came, and we kind of shuffled up to her afterwards and we're like, "Well, what do you think?" And she's like, "I love it." And we're like, "Yay!"
Really?
And the woman who told us not to come, she's fine. She's on our side too now.
Oh, good. But That's so weird. I think that a government decides, okay, that this is a bad idea. And
It's the
of course-
tourist office too. They should be going like, everything is possible in Amsterdam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of the Dutch attitude, of course. Like, het is niet mogelijk, it's not possible, is of course the go-to. And what we, of course, at the core of what we do is this idea of yes and. Of course, if you improvise, you have to accept that whatever your partner on stage says is the truth.
Yeah.
And from there, you build further. So we always say, love an idea for a minute. And that's exactly what Dutch people, or in this particular case, the tourist office, didn't do. They didn't love the idea even for a minute. They thought, no, let's not.
They didn't even try. They just...
Yeah.
Well, you know, over the years, one of the things I've thought is that Dutch folks have a hard time seeing the future. They're very into what they can see right then, but they can't kind of imagine. So like recently when like coffee started, coming to go. Coffee in a beker op straat? Nee, nooit lukken. And of course now everyone, coffee in a cup is normal, just like it was, in other places, or the Noord-Zuid line. Like, until it opened, so many Dutch people just couldn't imagine, a spine of transit through the city. And then once it opened, people were like, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, I get it. Oh, Station Zuid is going to be the new international train destination. But until it happens, sometimes people can't kind of envision it.
When you got that fax, was there a moment where you were thinking, okay, this is a bad idea, or it probably won't work in this country, we should not do it?
No, I thought it was going to work. I thought that Amsterdam was unique. We were considering London as well, too. Once we had the idea, we're like, well, why not London? They speak English there, even better. But we thought that Amsterdam was a small enough city that we could get the word out, that in London we would be sort of sucked up into everything that was happening there. And that there were three groups of people that we thought would see our show. We thought Dutch people who are very open to foreign things. There's no real anti-Americanism. Okay, George Bush was president and we had jokes, and okay, Trump now, but none of that was foreseeable. But Dutch people are not scared of foreign cultures, not worried about the language disappearing, like the French. They like English, they speak English. A lot of international companies have their headquarters here, so it was always an international city. And of course, visitors to the city, would see the show as well. So we thought that those three groups would work. And I couldn't imagine, being middle-aged in 25 years in the future, but I did think it was going to work from the beginning.
Yeah. And Saskia, how did you came into this company?
Yeah, well, I was an exchange student in America near Chicago, and I ran into Andrew's brother, who said, my brother's starting a theater show in Amsterdam, and and he connected us together, and I was still getting my master's degree in text linguistics, so I was not planning on being the CEO of a theater company. I also was still half entertaining to pursue an academic career instead. But I loved the concept. I loved, the idea that the form of theater was exciting. We hit it off right away. Pep, Andrew's best friend, and him, the three of us worked very, very well together. So it just kind of started. And back then, of course, you could not have a business without a Dutch-speaking person on your team, because nothing was in English. You could not even get a phone connection if you didn't speak Dutch. So I was helping them out, and and that's how it kind of started. And in the
From
core,
PTT.
yeah,
From what?
From PTT, the only people that you could get phones from.
and
Long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah. No, and it's still at the core. It's we laugh a lot, it's a group of friends. Like, it's still what it started as 27 years ago, and that feels fantastic.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's still a lot of laughs. I mean, it's still fun. I mean, it's nice that it is the same team and the same group of people, and we still like each other and work well together. That's lucky.
Yeah, that's quite unique,
Yeah.
because if you start as friends, sometimes you get the business differences and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to, what is your secret that you kept going these 27 years and you kept staying alive with this company and kept growing?
Well, I do think that partially this idea of always looking for ideas and opportunities based on this concept of yes and, always to love an idea for a minute, to incorporate, see where the opportunities are, even when you're, I mean, we have also walked on the edge of bankruptcy, in the 27 years. And, you just have to stay focused on what you're good at and keep doing that. And the ups and downs are part of running a business. And, that is just the way it is. And, keep moving forward and keep sort of developing, don't stand still. And I think that's what I also love, because success is just always around the corner. That's the excitement, like you're creating a new show. Oh, what if people really love it? And, we sold out houses. Like that energy is what, I think is fantastic to be part of.
Yeah, that improvisation thing is a part of it too. Like, we are good at pivoting. The idea is anything can happen. And then once you accept that that's the truth, that's the yes, then what's the and what are you going to do? So like in COVID times, we were already moving towards digital events, and then that just sort of accelerated. So, the venue is closed. We are very good at corporate events and communication and trainings and working in teams. Well, let's quickly accelerate that into digital events. So we're pivoters by nature. We take the spontaneity, and if you could have that attitude in whatever it is, I mean, think of early Google. They thought they were a search engine, and it turns out that they are an advertising platform. But, someone had to kind of see that and go, what about this? That's the and we're going to offer. Yes, people are searching for a lot of stuff, and, we can serve them advertisements based on what they search. But that's obvious now, but it wasn't obvious in the beginning.
No, of course. And if you, like you say, are on the verge of maybe bankruptcy, how do you keep that positive attitude? And how do you, because some people get paralyzed by that situation, but you kept on creating and thinking of different ideas. How is that possible?
Well, you do like that. It's the kind of a trap for entrepreneurs to always be optimistic and to pivot too late. That's a trap, because no matter how bad it goes, you keep thinking like, no, we're gonna make it. That said, optimism is something that is a really great attitude to have in general. And I think that when you're close, you're in a dire situation, I think the best thing to do is look for partnerships, look for ways to connect with others that ask for help, ask for advice.
Re-question foundations.
Yeah, but seek people that can help, because if you suffer in silence, then you don't move forward either. So I think that is always, I mean, that's something that I've built over the 27 years, is a giant network of connections with people, and I love doing that. I love also when someone says to me something about like, oh, I have this or this an issue or so, my brain is immediately thinking like, who can help? Oh, you know what, I can connect you with that person. And that's just how I'm wired. And I think that is also something that has helped Boom Chicago navigate all sorts of turbulence in the 27 years.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then you guys are probably a perfect fit together, because you handle the creative work. Could you explain something more about what does Boom Chicago look like? What can people expect when they come and visit?
So improvisation theater, and the Dutch definition, people call it stand-up comedy, and in the Dutch definition, we are, in that it is foreign-inspired comedy on a stage that isn't quite the Dutch tradition of cabaret. Okay. In English, though, stand-up comedy is something different. Stand-up comedy is someone telling jokes into a microphone on stage by themselves, and there might be spontaneous moments or improvisation, but it's kind of a routine, and, think of a Netflix special. Yeah. So that's stand-up, and we're improvisation, which is, something more like the Llamas, which is a team sport that works together. So, stand-up comedy, English definition, is more like tennis, and improvisation is more like football, where you play together. So on stage, sometimes people say, who's playing tonight? Okay, well, we have our ensemble of 5 actors, but it's not who's playing tonight and who's playing tomorrow. It is our ensemble that makes a creative show and then puts on a show each night that is partially improvised and different, and you could come every night and see new stuff in the show. So it's interactive, it's spontaneous, it takes ideas from the audience, but it's more improvisation and more specific insider information than you might see on an improvised TV show.
What do you mean with insider information?
Like, so this new show we're making, Sitcom, is we talk all of it's about the 90s, so it's got the music and the fashion and the fun of the 90s, and sitcoms. So this sort of TV format, you got a studio audience, friends, and the problem solved in 21 minutes, and it resets next week. So like this is we think is a bit of an idea for the 90s where it was a bit fun and a simpler time. It's before 9/11. It's of course before COVID and all this stuff that we're having now. So it's a wonderful topic for a show. And after we talk about sort of the elements of sitcoms and make fun of some of the sitcoms of the 90s, we make our own sitcom because we've taught you the components. And that is an improvised sitcom. So there's a name that comes from the audience. We got characters, and then they have a living room, like Seinfeld or Friends or something like that. And then we have this show. And it feels a bit like a sitcom, but it is improvised. Now, that level of taking creating a 20-minute scene based on ideas, that's more than you get at the Llamas, which is what we call short-form improv, which we also do, which is like, ding, continue as a horror movie. Okay, great. That's fun. We do it. We love it. But this long-form improvisation is sort of next-level improvisation, and we're very proud to do a show that involves what usually is sort of for improvisation fans for a mainstream audience, and that's kind of where we fit in the global improv world is bringing this long-form improvisation to a mainstream audience.
Yeah, because Dutch people didn't really know that kind of improvisation theater, and I read in your book, Ruben van der Meer was saying that it wasn't as accepted as cabaret, or we think of that as an art form. And why do you think that the Dutch people had such difficulty with accepting improvisation theater?
Well, one, it was new. Back then
they embraced it quite quickly, though. I must say, yeah. We started in 1993 in the summer, and already at the end of the summer, we got like a raving review from Hein Jansen in Volkskrant, and people started to like call, and of course we could not be open all year round because the theater that we were at was only open for us. They had their own programming, so quickly, like people started to call. I want tickets. I hear that this is fun. So it wasn't like that they had a hard time embracing it. It was just like, it was new.
Absolutely, too. And people, all it takes is one show, because everyone has that first improvisation show experience where you go, wow, it's fast. I mean,
people couldn't believe that it wasn't tricked. That they thought literally in the beginning that we had people in the audience that were part of our ensemble shouting out things, and then
we would pretend to improvise.
And then we would pretend to improvise. But of course, and then I always said, like, well, try it yourself. Shout out a suggestion, and then you'll see that it is really
also, there's two reasons why that's not true. One, we would never pay someone to take up a seat that someone else could sit in to shout out fake suggestions. And plus, the fun is, and you can watch it on stage, is we make ourselves laugh, and you can see when it's spontaneous. And that obviously it would be boring to fake improvise. I mean, it would just be no fun. And plus, you'd come 2 days and go, wait, this is the same show as yesterday, and those 6 people shouted things out. But if people shout out the same things, we do the opposite. Then we use that as a suggestion. So people shout out toilet a lot as a location. It's a fine location, but we get it all the time. So then we say, we're looking for a location like a toilet, and then
they won't say that.
And then they won't say. And then we get castle. Oh, got castle. Great. Let's go do a scene in a castle. And then you can almost see the actors going, okay, castle, good suggestion.
Nice challenge.
And then, we go, nicely done. And then they feel good about it too. So we want good and different suggestions as well. So we try to steer it that way. Although with a musician who can jump into things, with a technician who's got the internet. So sometimes people are like, well, how'd you get a picture of a castle? And he's playing castle music, well, that's just what we do.
That's also part of it.
That's all part of it. And it's all those people coming together. And that is the magic of an improv show.
Yeah, that's amazing. And well, some of the most amazing, famous actors, writers started their careers here. People who came from America and were here for a couple of years. How do you get those people here? What is the how do you do auditions, or how do they come here?
We have auditions in America, and in the beginning, it took a bit of an adventurer to come, to Amsterdam, to this thing which hadn't proven itself yet, and do improvisation in Europe. But it actually is quite a good boot camp for creative people. And once people started getting success after Boom Chicago, then people realize, oh no, this is a stepping stone. Because first of all, a lot of people are funny, but they're taking classes in theaters like Boom Chicago in other cities. And a lot of Boom Chicago people have started sort of mini Boom Chicagos in other cities where they are now the improv theater there, which makes us very proud.
Yeah.
But you come here, you are with a creative group of people, you perform, every night of the week, full time, and you're not a bartender and a waiter for your money.
Yeah, improv is also like you have to do a lot of hours, a lot of time on
Reps,
task.
we say, like, because everyone's nervous in the beginning, and you got to find your confidence, you got to find your voice, because it's got to be authentic. I mean, it's got to be you, and that's always nice. Is the cast is a collection of individuals who also work well together.
Yeah.
But someone is a history person and reads a lot and just knows facts, and then someone else is a music fan and knows all that, and someone has a Dutch partner here and they're connected a bit more to Amsterdam society and they're long term. So everyone brings their piece to the piece of the pie to the table.
Yeah, but nowadays, we do still do auditions, but it's just easier to attract, talent, just because the reputation that we have in the States is quite high, and especially because such visible talents that came to Boom, like Seth Meyers and Jordan Peele, and now Amber Ruffin will get her own show, and Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt have their own show on
Ted
TV.
Lasso, it's so good.
So that gives us that's kind of our sort of brand is that you have to go to Boom Chicago because that's just a place where you can do what you love, you get paid for it, and you make a lot of hours getting better.
In Chicago, you might be at a theater where you perform with your team once a week and don't get paid, and then work 5 days a week in an office. And here you can perform 5 days a week, not work in an office, and that just means you accelerate and grow at 5 times the pace.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, Amsterdam is still very much loved in the States. When you say, "Oh, I'm from Amsterdam," everybody goes, "Oh."
Yeah.
So it's
no
like
one goes, "I don't want to go there."
Exactly. So that's a huge attraction.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, what also makes the performers quite strong here is that they are performing for a Dutch audience. And a Dutch audience means that they cannot rely on references to certain TV shows that we've never seen here or so. So they really have to...
Baseball, high school, none of that.
None of the references work. So they really have to go into their creative brain and make jokes that make this particular audience laugh. And that makes them so much more creative.
That's so true. Because in the beginning, these people who are at the top of whatever they're doing in America or London, we now audition in London as well too, and then they come here, and the first feeling is they're not funny, which is funny. It's kind of like you go up a league in sports, and you were the king of this level, and now you're the youngest in this level, and everyone's bigger and faster and better than you. But it's the Dutch audience being just unfamiliar. So then you got to break it down. Well, what's international? What's funny? Okay, work. Okay, relationships. Life. So you kind of get broken down your old habits, and then you build this new habits, because performing for Dutch people is a lot like what your next job is going to be, which is writing for people on television who don't know you. So you're not the hero of your theater who everything you do is funny.
Yeah, you don't have a reputation.
You don't have a reputation. So you need to write for Americans or English people or wherever you're going to write for. So that skill of finding your next level talent, which is to be funny to people who don't love you already, is super important.
Yeah, exactly. I also I saw that Jordan Peele wrote something about that the Dutch people are less enthusiastic than the Americans. So I was thinking maybe it's also a good school for them, because if you can make the Dutch people laugh, then you can make everybody laugh. Is it like that?
It is a little bit. It's true. Like, so the Dutch people are great because, like, if you saw the show, hey, make some noise. Americans are like, woo. If you say in Holland, make some noise, the Dutch people are like, tell me why I should make some noise. So it always starts like this, and you can get that open where you open up your crossed arms, but. It's the Dutch folks as a rule aren't going to give it away easy, which at one point, if you think about it, says something about Dutch people, which is like, why would you get a babysitter, pay to park your car, come to a theater, and then be grumpy about it and go like, well,
show me.
Yeah, show me. Like, why would you live your life that way? Why not just make some noise for a second and go like, I'm out here and let's see what they got. I mean, you chose to come here, right? It's not like anyone made you come here.
Yeah,
So,
Seth has a funny story about like someone in the audience, after the show said like, hey, can I buy you a beer? And then says, sure. And they were having a beer. And then he said, I hated you in this particular scene. And then Seth goes like, why did you buy me a beer? To tell me that you didn't like what I did? It's just so typical.
It's so weird, yeah. But so at the beginning, when you started, of course, Saskia, you were Dutch, but Andrew, you're American. But now it's 27 years later, and you can call yourself Dutch as well.
Yes.
So how has your how has the content of what you are making
it's matured for sure. Yeah. I mean, the first year, it was about the visitor's experience in Amsterdam. So guys got high in a scene and had a surreal sort of stoner freak out, and the Heineken brewery was a location for one scene because that was what we were about then. We had that experience, which is, I mean, we weren't here for 3 days. We were here for a summer, but okay, that was our first experiences in Amsterdam. As we get older and as I learn Dutch and I read the paper and I go see shows myself and I'm a part of Dutch society, well, then what I think about is much more. So we're much more focused on sort of the technology. We did a show about artificial intelligence where we programmed a robot to improvise with us on stage. And
but also our political show about Trump is to explain to a Dutch audience this crazy American politics. And so we do not have something like gerrymandering in the Netherlands. You cannot repurpose districts so that they become in favor of your political party. And gerrymandering is a huge problem in America. So
if you put all the Democrats in one district, so they win 95% of the vote, and then you put just 51% of Republicans in a different district, so then you get, instead of it being 4 representatives and 4, like it might be, it's 6 and 1, or 6 and 2.
But that's just something that we explain in our show. So we very much look at like what's the world like from a local perspective, and not from a bunch of Americans who come here and
exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Our primary audience. It's a show for Dutch people where visitors are welcome, and not a show for tourists where Dutch people are welcome, and that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
But we also had a really popular show called The 7 Deadly Dutch Sins, where we found 7 things that we thought were very typical Dutch details, and then made a show about that. And Dutch people love that,
of course,
because Dutch people, when you sort of turn the mirror back on Dutch people, that they actually, there's no like ego about that. That's the other side of sort of the nuttig Dutch people, is they're kind of like, oh, okay, that's true. You got me on that.
Self-spots.
Yeah. So when that's also a nice spot to be in, because certainly there's great Dutch comedians, and certainly there's great American comedians that come to town and play Ziggo Dome. But there's not too many people but that's, it always starts with, wow, look at the bikes, okay. So again, for Dave Chappelle, look at the bikes is his first experience. But, for us, we have bikes, and it's fine. We're done with that. So we want to go a bit deeper into our experience of having a foot in both worlds, which is given, as someone who, are Americans. Actually, I also feel European. I like that idea of, the connection to capital cities of Europe, the people who work in international companies and travel. So in addition to feeling like an Amsterdammer, I also feel European. But we have that ability to sort of be experts in different, to have a perspective that other people don't have.
Yeah, exactly. I was curious, how do you direct or write an improv show?
How do you rehearse it even,
how do you
too?
rehearse it? Yeah.
Well, so so once we come up with a theme, then we write some scenes about that theme, or we write improvisations, which is like, let's make a 90s song. Okay, that would be like an improvisation we might do. What is it? Okay, we explain what, here's some hits, here's what it's like. Okay, boy bands, girl bands. Well, let's, what would be a good suggestion? Okay, and then we make something musical. So like improvise a 90s song. That would be something like we might do. Yeah. But you can't rehearse a show like you rehearse lines. You just have to rehearse what I would say the grammar of improvisation. So this yes and that Saskia was talking about, which is if we say, hey, if I say our son is not doing well in school, okay, I'm sort of suggesting we have a relationship, we have a child. She wouldn't go, who are you? That would make no sense. So instead she goes, oh, and I think he might be doing drugs. Oh, okay, so now, that's why he's not doing well. Someone in the back line might go, oh, well, he needs a drug dealer. So then he might come into the scene and ask if, hey, is John here? Because I got something for him, and then, we all know what that is. So you can't rehearse the lines, but you rehearse the grammar of, if someone says something, how do you add to it? How do you yes and it? And how do you do something quickly? Sometimes it's like we need to get to the core of the scene quickly. What is the shiny object we talk about too? Like if we say 5 lines, there's one thing that we're going to jump on and move forward. So we all need to agree, like, what's the important detail in the scene? So that's kind of what you practice.
Yeah, and I think it's also a lot about trust, that when a person initiates a scene on stage, that you trust that is the right move, and that it's again very comparable to soccer. Like it's how do you practice soccer? You just need to know that when you shoot that way, that someone else is going to come and pick up the ball and move it forward. And so
right. You can plan plays, but it doesn't go. You need to plan spontaneity. You need to seize opportunity, and that's what we do too. That's a nice way to think about it.
Yeah. So, how long is your ensemble together here? Is it a few years? Is it?
We say people have to commit for at least a year, but if you leave in only a year, it's a bit of a disappointment. So usually it's about 2 or 3 years, and then people can plug into Amsterdam a little bit and understand what's going on. And there is always a little bit of movement. We always say, even if you have a commitment for a year, we never stand in the way of your opportunities. So if Hollywood calls and says, we need you, then we are happy to have another Boom Chicago person go on to something big. So we say, you can't leave Boom Chicago for something worse. That's not allowed. But if you leave Boom Chicago for something better, that's okay.
Are there sometimes, is it the case that sometimes one person goes out and one person comes in? So you have to redefine the group as well. Did you have some difficulties with that as well? Because to me, you have to trust each other. You have different characters. How do you make sure they come together and they trust each other?
Yeah, sometimes you have to guess a little bit, like, will that person be a good match? What do we need in the show? Sometimes you're like, oh, well, we have a kind of a nerdy, kind of educated beta person, and we need an alpha. We lost a leader, and we need that kind of a person who can kind of shout down a heckler and own the audience a little bit, because if everyone's passive, that doesn't work. Of course, everyone's an alpha male, then it gets horrible too. So, you got to find the mix of gender in the show is important. Over the 25 years, sort of the roles of women in comedy has changed from literally being women aren't funny. It was kind of the thought in the 90s to, women are fantastic. So, but that, was a process that took time. So all these questions, you want to have different, voices. So we always try to have a good mix of people. We've had a lot of great black actors over the years who, of course, offer a new voice in the show. So it's a combination of finding people who bring something different to the table and yet work well together. And if you do it right, like this cast is really fantastic and really works well together. So we're at a high point of like good cohesion, and that's why this show is going so well, the creative process, and we're really excited about it. It's a mix of good writers, good performers, good people.
Yeah, so you created a great team, and you don't only do the comedy shows. You have a lot of different things you can do here at Boom Chicago. Workshops.
We have the Boom Chicago Academy. So that's we started that almost 2 years ago, and it is a full 5-level improvisation theater school, and already close to 100 students walking around in the program. So that's really exciting. In that Boom Chicago Academy, we also have our non-for-profit foundation, where we teach teenagers with autism improvisation skills to give them more confidence in the unpredictable world around them. And and for the rest, we
also
do
business stuff too. We teach sort of pitch trainings, how to communicate well in an office situation, how to present in large and medium and small settings. Now also digital presenting, which is very important. How do you use, now that everyone's on screens, it's a different game, but you also need to be convincing. You need to lead. You need to sell. And these are new skills that people have, and they all spring well from improvisation training.
Yeah, and I love that the venue has, over the course of the years that we've now been on the Rozengracht, has kind of developed into this creative hotspot where we also program other things. The Boom Chicago Academy students also put on their own shows, so we have community nights where the participants perform themselves, and so it's much more than just Boom Chicago that we program here, and I think that's exciting, especially now in COVID times. We are the theater that's still up and running, full speed ahead. We still have a nice capacity of 150 seats, in with the social distancing.
Down from 300, but still 150 is a lot.
Yeah. It's still okay. And then a lot of initiatives in the city have no home anymore. So we've programmed some very cool things already, and so that makes the venue like a nice place where more things happen than just Boom Chicago.
Yeah, we're going to launch a third small venue in the upstairs, basically. So we want to be, we have 2 venues now, and we want to be running, 21 shows a week, basically, is the idea. So of varying levels, of varying sizes and aspirations, but comedy and even non-comedy. But we just want to continue to be a place where it is fun, that you want to come, that you want to stay at the bar afterwards and drink, and you want to see something that surprises you and makes you laugh, and that's what we do.
Yeah, great. And just one question about that non-profit organization, Interacting. You just said helping children with autism, with the onvoorspelbaarheid, unpredictability of the world. You have a son with autism. When did you realize that improvisation can help him? Because if I think of people on the spectrum, I think of they don't like change, and
they don't.
Yeah. So how did you? When did you realize that was helping each other?
Well, like when you have a child with autism, then obviously you start to learn a lot from just experiencing with him. To us, flexibility is a muscle that you can train. So we never really settled for that we needed to create a sort of too structured environment for him, because we wanted to make him more flexible. And like he has a fantastic memory. There's so much information stored in his brain. Whether it's going to be useful or not, we don't know, but he has a micro focus on voice actors and micro focus on train schedules and trains and things like that. But of course the world is unpredictable, and just like improvisation is without a script, there are strategies underlying. What Andrew was talking about, the grammar of improv, is exactly what you can learn and what we can teach to make them more comfortable. So when an unpredictable situation, an unexpected situation happens, they do not have to be stressed. They are confident that they can deal with that, and that's what we are using improv for. Besides that, also why we focus on teenagers is because they are a vulnerable group when just you reach the age where you want to be connected to others, you discover that you're having a challenge to make connections with other people. So we want this also to be the place where they make friends and learn how to make friends, and that it's fantastic to see. They have so much fun doing it, and yes, they become more confident. And one of the participants, he had a hard time doing an exam in school, and there were too many things that were going not his way, and he has the tendency then to get very bothered by that. And then he told his mom, you know what, I just decided to improvise, and then he got that from interacting. He just managed to stay in the exam and finish it up just because he felt that he understood that what he needed was to deal with the unexpected and to embrace it.
What's really exciting is to watch the parents, when the students perform, get a bit teary-eyed themselves when they're like, I didn't know my son could do this. And then that's the inspiration. We just see the kids, so we don't realize how impressive it is to see them be flexible to their parents
Yeah.
as well too.
Step on stage, say their name,
Yeah.
say something interesting about themselves, play characters, play yes and. I mean, it's really nice to see.
Sas has
Yeah.
a really great TED Talk on that too as well,
Yeah.
which you can see online, which talks about improvisation and teenagers with autism. So if folks are interested, I would recommend.
Yeah, definitely. It's really, really nice to see because I never thought of it that way that you can learn flexibility. I
Yes.
always thought that it's something you have or you cannot do, but you can learn that. It sounds really contradicted, but
yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
it's and certainly I understand why parents are scared. I do understand that, and especially in when our son was younger and something didn't go his way, he would lie on the ground for half an hour, totally upset, and we knew. It's a roller coaster ride. He's gotten on the roller coaster. We have to wait until he's back into the station. But we saw, we're not giving in on that now means that we have to stay home. We are still going to travel. We are still going to take him to a restaurant. Oh, and the next time it was actually 25 minutes instead of 30. Okay, we're moving forward. And now he has no trouble. We can tell him, on the spot, the plans have changed, and he is totally flexible. And I do think that although it was scary at times when he was lying on the ground and we couldn't move him forward, we just kept on focusing on the future and saying, this is not how this is how he is.
This is not how he has to be.
And I strongly believe that if you treat a child the way he is, he'll stay that way. And if you treat a child what he can become, then you can lead him to become that way.
Yeah. Yeah, super inspiring. Really cool. Are there things about your entrepreneuring journey, things that you've learned that you can share with our listeners? What are your biggest lessons or advice that you would give to people who want to start their own theater or their own group?
Well, on the business side, I would say that building a network, people always kind of cringe when you say networking, and they go, oh, and they have this association with it that you're only out there to get something from someone.
Yeah.
But that is not networking. Networking just means that you're building a network of people that can potentially, be inspiring to you, that you can collaborate with. I go to a lot of events, and yes, I'm networking, but I'm not there. I could be stuck in a very interesting conversation for an hour and never speak to anybody else at the event and walk away. And was that effective? Oh, I just got one connection. That's not how you network. You build relations. And when I look now, for instance, when we were thinking of we should live stream our show, then Andrew said who can we approach? And I said, I've worked with Mark Feller from We Are Live before, and then he calls him up, and Mark was instantly excited. That's how that is. It's not about what is this person bringing to me. It is about at some point in time you might collaborate, and then you have this pool of people that you can contact, and I think that is really important for a business.
That's great.
Yes. So not the shallow contacts with a lot of people.
It's not just collecting business
yeah.
cards.
It's not collecting business cards, but it's really just I can have an interesting conversation at my Pilates class, and we can walk away and go oh, that was great. I didn't know that you did that. Oh, I didn't know that. And then, you email later and say oh, thanks for having this wonderful conversation in the dressing room of Pilates. And let's have a coffee and see what we can do for each other. Totally normal and super important.
Yeah.
What I would say to people starting up would be, try to put the deal together yourself. That's so important. If you're an actor, if you're only an actor, okay, of course, if you're at the top level, that's fantastic. But you're always auditioning and waiting to be sort of picked in for someone's project. But if you could be an actor-writer, then you can write the piece that has the perfect role for you. And then if it gets pitched and accepted, you're not just a piece of the production, it's your production. So actors who write, that's a great deal. Directors who produce. So if you want to, if you're a director of a show, the same thing. If you can connect, if you can bring the theater in or the financing in, then you can put the thing together, and then you're in it already too. I cast myself in Boom Chicago. It's nice too, but if you are only on the artistic side, then you are at the mercy of the artistic journey. So if you go from, theater school to, join a theater company to doing productions, and great. And we subsidize theater and pay for the arts in Holland, which is fantastic and lovely. And great if you can, there's nothing wrong if you can make that deal work. But if you aren't scared of the business side of things, if you write, if you create, if you produce, if you put together things, that is a perhaps easier or at least additional way of getting your project moving forward.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that too, that, always keep out for like which skill set or which knowledge can you get out in the world that you don't have already? Like, so I did text linguistics at the University of Tilburg, which wasn't the best education to start a business. So at some point I said like, okay, there's smart people who have said something about running a company. And so I went to Nijrode for a year and a half to follow a program there that has helped me a lot. And then later, my role in the company changed a little bit too, where I felt the need to learn about creative leadership. So I went to Think, the Amsterdam School for Creative Leadership. So like there is the fact that you've done a study, there is still so much to learn. And along the way, there might be moments where you go like, wonder if I can do an extra bit of background or I can get some knowledge from places. It's always good. And again, also what I found is that those are the places too where you have fellow students, where you can learn from fellow, like at Nijrode, we would stay overnight. We would be in class till 10 o'clock and then we stayed on the campus for the next Saturday morning session. And the conversations in the bar after a long day of school were just as fascinating as the content itself, because you can really pick someone's brain and say, how do you do that? Like, I don't know. Like, so, and that's what you need to do. You need to go out and like look for knowledge.
Yeah, that's a great advice.
Yeah, and connect with your audience too. Think about what, like, you don't want to do what you don't want to do. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to sell out, but if you don't connect to an audience, then the final step of why you're putting on a production is missing. So like Boom Chicago, luckily we do exactly the shows that we want, and luckily audiences really love them. But we do think about like, what is a topic that will appeal to our audience? So, we have a lot of tech early adapters. So we did a show about social media way back in the day, about technology. Like I was talking about artificial intelligence, because that's kind of, it's a natural pond to fish in the 90s. So we would never just sort of say, well, this is my vision and it doesn't matter what people think. I find that is harder to make work these days, is that you do need to connect with people, and you need to find out what is your authentic voice that you want to do that also connects to people at the end. And don't see that as an impediment. See that as absolutely what you're going to do. And if you're going to write for television, it's got to be popular. It's got to be something that they will say yes to. So you gotta need to find that way of what your first idea is and what they think they want, and find that way to make it match. But the business side of it, or the product side of the way that the output side of it is not a necessary evil. It's actually something fun, and you'd be surprised that that what you want to do does find an audience.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, we've also always worked with companies as well, which, like in Dutch, often that's like sort of looked at as a snobble or something like that. And for us, that's not how we perceive that, because we really do add value to what the company is doing.
We don't just bring our show and say, here it is. And then when they don't like it as much, like, oh, stupid bankers.
No, we really look at, like, we say humor makes business better. And we strongly believe in that, because so many companies, put on events where they, like have invested a lot in, the stage and the catering and all, and
flying everybody out,
and then it's a boring long day with like, oh my God, like, and that's where we host events where we add comedy here and there, and then we really do inspire the employees or the clients and it makes for the company for a better day. And especially now with digital events too, we quickly pivoted, like Andrew mentioned before. And because humor is now so incredibly important in these digital events, we have been busy in all these months with like all the things that we've put on. We've learned very fast also what works and what doesn't work. And, when companies call us now and say like, oh, we're thinking of like can we do this via Teams? And it's like a 30-minute intermezzo. Yes, yeah, we can do it. Yes, yeah. So it's
super flexible.
And, it's for us, it's never been something like that we looked down upon. We see it as a very important part of our creativity to also apply it to the business world.
It might be it's the best show that those insurance people have ever seen about insurance. It might be the only show they've ever seen about insurance, but we made it.
Yeah, exactly. and I think that is also the one of the important pillars of why Boom Chicago has been able to sustain without subsidy, because we've never had a single cent of subsidy, and so that we are proud of that. We are never worried when the Kunstenplan gets presented because we get now 800,000 euros less. We also are much more frugal in that sense that it's our own money that we're investing in things. So we do not have a surplus of staff members who might not have, an efficient role in the company. But, that's the way we do things because we don't have to watch the money that we're expending. We're very, efficient and
self-sufficient,
and driven and all that. But I think that is that is the companies and the connections that we have there have been key to us being able to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. We have to close it off, unfortunately. But when can we see the show, Sitcom?
Sitcom. It starts already in a week. September 21st is the first preview. We're doing first premiere. We're doing a premiere week because we can't get the capacity on one day.
Smart.
But that's how it is. And we're also selling some tickets to the public for each premiere because we don't want it just to be a sort of a beginner kind of a thing. We want our regular fans to come as well. But it opens in September and it runs through at least Christmas. But looking at the interest now, I think it'll run through 2021. But come in September. We run a Corona responsible theater operation, good fresh air, high ceilings, and Boom is a fun night out. And you need laughter also in crazy times.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be there. I'm very curious.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Is there anything I forgot to ask you? Is there anything left to add, or are we finished?
No, I think like Andrew said, I'm proud of this cast. I think it is a great group of people. The team is nice. We're ready. So yes, come 21st of September. Little nerve-wracking premieres, I always find, even after 27 years, there is that butterflies in your stomach. I think that performing is a very vulnerable job. It is also quite a rewarding job because you get applause if you do it well right away.
That's nice. Most jobs you don't get applause. Well, edited that software.
Yeah. So, but it is exciting. We're ready to go, and we'd love for people to come and see it.
90s will never die.
No, I love the 90s.
Yay.
Yeah, but that's also true because if you're not excited anymore or nervous, I think that's when you're done, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So it's good to be nervous.
You have to care, and I care just as much as the first show. So I sometimes and then I bike to the theater and I go like, Jesus sauce, you've done this for 27 years, you're still nervous, and then I go like, that's part of it. Yes. So
awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you so much, Saskia and Andrew, and thank you guys for listening and watching. I loved having this conversation. Andrew and Saskia are really inspiring people in the way they've built this amazing comedy institute with so much love, hard work, and laughter. Here are my takeaways from this conversation. 1. Yes, and the first rule of improvisation: don't say no. Don't blow an idea right off. Love it for a minute. We are so quick to shut our own or other people's ideas off. Think about the negatives, especially as Dutch people. Accept what happens, give it a chance, and see what you can add, how you can make more out of it. 2. Keep learning. Just because you went to college or have had an education does not mean you are done for the rest of your life. Don't think that you can just be one thing and never do anything else because you didn't go to school for it. Seek out mentors, classes, workshops, and broaden your horizon. 3. Networking isn't collecting business cards. It's having meaningful conversations wherever you are. Really listen to people's stories, and if you can do something together in the future, that is great. 4. If it's possible, try to make yourself a bit less dependent of the mercy of other people. If you're always dependent of a casting director or a gallery holder to know if you have work or not, you don't have much control. So, if you're an actor who writes as well, or an artist who also likes the business side as well, do that. 5. Connect with your audience. Of course, make what you want to make, but do not forget that you always want to connect with others as well. You want people to buy your tickets or listening to your music. Don't see that as an impediment, but as a challenge. 6. Flexibility is something you can learn. There are rules in flexibility as well. This might not be working for everyone or for any kid on the spectrum, but I think it's amazing how they teach this to not only children, but to businesses and people in general. That's it. I'm really excited to see the show Sitcom next week to dive back into the 90s. Not only the actors are improvising, but there's also live music improvisation, there's a technician improvising. So why do we actually look back at the 90s with such nostalgia? Was everything really that great? Or why do we hang on to it so much? Stuff like this will definitely come up as well. And as you've heard, they are actually creating a live long-form improv sitcom with the audience at the end of the show. I can't wait to see what these actors are going to come up with. Improvisation is a form of theater which I have always loved so much, and it kind of got me thinking of maybe doing an improv class at Boom. Not sure about this yet, but it is something that really has gotten into my head since this conversation. That's it for this episode. Check out their new show Sitcom. It premieres September 22nd and will play for a while after that, so get your tickets now. See you next week, dan gewoon weer in het Nederlands. Tot volgende week.
Vond je dit een leuk gesprek? Abonneer je dan op de podcast en volg de Makers Podcast op Facebook en Instagram. Delen en reviewen is heel erg fijn en laat het me vooral weten als je nog gasten of vragen hebt die je graag wilt horen. Volgende week staat er weer een hele bijzondere, inspirerende gast voor je klaar. Deze podcast werd gemaakt door mij, Dide Vonk, en de muziek is van David Zwarts. Deze podcast kwam mede tot stand met steun van Stichting Norma. Ben jij uitvoerend kunstenaar en wordt jouw werk wel eens opgenomen en uitgezonden? Meld je dan aan bij Norma.